Hey everybody, welcome back to Late to the Party, where we review movies that are at least 10 years old, and hopefully ones that we haven't, or at least some of us haven't watched. And we get perspectives from people that date back all the way to the Vietnam War. Isn't that interesting? So, going with the tradition that we've been going with the wheel, last week we spun all Stephen King films, and we came up with the 1990 Misery. This movie was directed, surprising to me, by Rob Reiner. And looking into good old Rob, I was very surprised to see his list of movies included things like This Is Spinal Tap, Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, and A Few Good Men. So Rob Reiner is no slouch when it comes to filmmaking. This movie starred Kathy Bates as Annie Wilkes, and you would know her, of course, from either Titanic if you're a snob, or perhaps The Waterboy if you have a sense of humor. James Caan from Godfather and from Elf. Lauren Bacall, very surprising to see her in this film, from Dark Passage and The Murder on the Orient Express, classic films. Richard Farnsworth as Sheriff Buster. He was in The Ten Commandments and The Outlaw Josie Wales.
Ten Commandments?
Yes.
Was he Moses?
No, he was a chariot driver.
Uh-oh.
Frances Sternhagen as Virginia. She was in Raising Cain and another Stephen
I love
King
those
film
chicken strips.
Huh?
I love those chicken
Love
strips.
those chicken strips.
Oh, not Raising Canes, you weirdo. She was also in The Mist and met an untimely end.
Spoilers, fucker.
So this movie rated only 7.8 out of 10 on IMDb, got an 89% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, and 4.9 out of 5 on Walmart.com, a big favorite of the Walmart crowd. For those of you that did not see it along with us, just as a synopsis, after a serious car crash, novelist Paul Sheldon is rescued by former nurse Annie Wilkes, who claims to be his biggest fan. Annie brings him to a remote cabin to recover, where her obsession takes a dark turn when she discovers Sheldon is killing off her favorite character from his novels. As Sheldon devises plans for escape, Annie grows increasingly controlling, even violent, as she forces the author to shape his writing to suit her twisted fantasies. Ooh. So, did anybody here not see this movie before? And if it's you, Jose, we can't see you, so if you're raising your hand, it's no good.
I can see him.
So
No, I've watched this
seen
movie before. Shockingly, I've watched this movie before, like a few times.
Well, hopefully it was an enjoyable rewatch. I just want to share a couple of fun facts before I dive into some of our questions for tonight. This is officially Stephen King's favorite movie adaptation of one of his works. As we all know, he's done a lot of films, but Misery is by far his favorite. And Kathy Bates won her first and only Academy Award for Best Actress for this film, and it is also the only Stephen King film to ever win an Academy Award. Big surprise. I guess our sophomore year in high school was a good year, right? All right, let's get to the questions. I'm going to start with the caveman Isaac. What are your thoughts on the way this film was put together in terms of pacing? Do you think it is a well-crafted film the way that the movie is laid out?
I think it was well crafted. Like we see in the very beginning, he's finishing up his book, and then as he's going down the little path, you get those little little breadcrumbs showing you that, like, hey, he doesn't realize that it's a windy path, and it's giving you like this is gonna go bad. And the way that they pace it and cut it, and then they go flashback when he's talking about killing off the character and how it's a shitty character. Like, I'm done with it. And then he ends up with this lady who's been stalking him for the past however many years she's known he's been doing that. But yeah, the whole way the movie was cut, and Rob Reiner is an excellent director, and like the body of work you named off, that was just like a multitude of different genres that he's able to go through, and that this movie right here shows how great he is in filming.
Definitely. Lego. Did you notice, as I did, how Annie would go into like a robot mode on occasion when she was frustrated with Paul. And what do you think her particular malfunction was?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. I would hate to give out medical advice on the internet, but she had some sort of personality disorder. I mean, it was quite clear that she was incapable of handling negative emotion in a healthy way. So perhaps some sort of narcissism or something like that.
Do you think that was related in any way to how her character dealt with her work at the hospital in the infancy ward?
Oh, absolutely. I think that very much played a part with that. I mean, Stephen King, he likes to hurt the children,
Right?
I think it stems from being a parent himself and just knowing that that's an awful thing, that it's a horrible thing for parents to experience trauma to their child. So it's almost a cheap move, I'd say, but if it wasn't so damn effective. I think he definitely recognizes that, and having these infants probably cry and just not respond to someone with whatever disorder she has. She's not able to control them, not able to communicate with them. How's a baby supposed to understand what this insane nurse is saying? So I think all those deaths probably stemmed out of temper tantrums of some sort.
So rather than snuff out babies, she just decides to break ankles, huh?
Yes. Hey, she's growing as a person,
Oh,
She's moved on to adults.
all right. Jose, since you are a resident literary expert, do you think that Paul Sheldon was a truly great author, or that Annie was a fan of cheap romance novel trash?
Personally, I kind of saw him as like a Stephanie Meyer sort of character. He had his particular fandom. Kind of in the way, like, I think what I like about this movie and what I think makes it timeless is that people are always going to fall in love with the particular piece of work, Josh and Star Wars. And to see certain things done to it by the creators and the people who are at the helm of it, you're never going to make everybody happy. I mean, obviously we saw what happened with like the Game of Thrones finale. We've seen what's happened with Star Wars and just anything you can think of. Even with going back to comparing him to Stephanie Meyer, whatever. When there was people who were really upset how the Twilight series ended. So whether or not he's like the great American author, I don't know. But I think there's got to be some kind of I think he is, because wasn't the sheriff also like a big fan of his?
I think the sheriff took it up as a means to try and investigate the situation, figure out how Paul thought so that he could try and track down where the body might be.
Okay, because I always saw it like, oh, he's like this new fan who's really trying to get into it, and Kathy Bates is like the old school fans who doesn't want anyone to really jump into it. Because there's some of those people that exist even when we were, even now I still see it like in the comic world. There's some people that consider themselves purists of certain characters, and whenever certain things are done to some, they don't like it. But I don't know, man. I would think, I mean, from the clues that I got in the movie, I think he is a great author. Just because he's well, didn't they mention he won certain awards? Like everywhere he goes, he's recognized. People know him
by crazy chicks.
Well, I mean, crazy chicks are a huge demographic, man. And if you can get crazy chicks, crazy chicks to buy your books, dude, you're gonna be well known, because they're gonna repost your stuff on Instagram, retweet everything you say.
It's like 45% of people.
It's yeah. So I don't know. I think who was it that said it? They said, I don't know. I would say I want to say he is, because of the fact that everybody knows him. But now that you're mentioning it, I'm realizing, yeah, it is all women that know him. Who knows? You know, to be a New York Times best-selling author doesn't mean you have to be, you know, the greatest writer. You just have to know how to market those books and, you know, how to actually sell. So,
Well, if you don't mind me jumping in real quick,
go for it, please, because I'm like, yeah.
I don't think he was a great writer before his experience. I think after Kathy Bates, you know, put him through that, he came away with something that was real, and it changed him emotionally. And like he had never seen, I don't think, really much critical success prior to the book's release 18 months after the you know, climax of the movie. So I don't think he was a great writer until you know, the end of the film.
Yeah, I think I'm stuck because I'm trying to differentiate the book and the film, because the book's a little bit different. Yeah.
And I think we have to say that all of that considered, Paul certainly handles post-traumatic stress rather well.
In the movie he does, in the book he doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, the book he's a freaking mess.
So Nate, question for you. If you were in Paul's shoes, or in Splint's as it were, what would you have done?
When?
At any point.
When you wake up in her house.
In the first place.
Yeah,
There's a whole timeline. Like there's
right.
I would have done different things
so
along the timeline.
Let's take it to a very specific point. When you're in the house, she's already been treating you, and she has that first fit where she starts spilling the soup on you. That moment.
Oh man.
What do you do from there?
Well, you don't quite know who she is yet. You know, he didn't do anything that made me think that it was a bad idea what he was doing, or I never questioned it, whether or not he was smart, or, you know, so you watch scary movies sometimes and people do things that make you go like, oh wow, what an idiot. I didn't have any he's an idiot moments, you know. In answering that question with the benefit of hindsight, I don't know that I would have anything different. You know, he didn't seem like he did any classic stupid things that left him vulnerable. I mean, he was pretty jacked up, so his legs were all jacked up before she jacked them up even worse. So he was out in the wilderness. Like, there's no, what are you gonna do? Just try to heal, exercise with the typewriter? Like, he was doing things, you know. I mean, he had a plan, just didn't work out. Her clumsiness with the wine, you know.
I had forgotten about him in the film working out with the typewriter. I forgot, like, oh yeah, he's trying to regain some of his strength so he can wrestle with that big broad.
Right. And I remembered her being older. It's like, man, I thought she was 10 years away from the grave when that movie came out, but she wasn't that old. She just looked it.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe they might have given her some gray around the temples, but I think that was about it.
They usually do that when you see the progression of the character going from the innocent, doe-eyed whatever, and then they change things, like they start wearing darker colors, or they put a little gray in their hair, or they make their eyes a little darker. But they're very subtle changes throughout the movie that you see stuff like that. You don't catch it till the end when they go full psycho. You're just like, oh my god. There's like little things that they show along the way.
All right, let's get to your question and then we'll wrap up buckets. So Liz, we all know that King is a master of horror, both supernatural and psychological horror.
Okay.
But does Stephen King do well in his portrayals of normal folk, especially in this film?
I don't ever think there's like normal folk in any of Stephen King's stuff. Because even the quote unquote normal folk, which I'm assuming you're going to talk about, you think it's the husband and wife and the sheriff and the deputy, or the shop owner, that kind of thing, or even his publicist. You know, I guess the most normal character would have been the publicist, because they all have their little idiosyncrasies. He draws a lot of his characters from the people in the town that he lives in
Bangor.
So there's a lot of that going on. He draws just from personal like stuff. But I mean, yeah, the husband and wife, I related to them when I was watching them, and their little, I think those are my favorite scenes, actually, is their relationship, because I can see a lot of us in that, super sarcastic to each other and saying inappropriate things to each other, or at the wrong times, or, you know, putting a hand on the knee while you're driving in the snow. I mean, silly things like that. Like, I can see that. So in this movie, I can relate more to that couple than I could to anybody else. But yeah, even it, like I said, even in his normal, even writing his normal characters, they still have problems. Like, all of the characters in all of the movies, they all have some kind of damage to them, because they're not perfect people, and he has the ability to see those little idiosyncrasies in people and write them into his characters.
All right, let's get to some buckets. Isaac, what do you got for us?
I'm gonna go with 8 buckets. It wasn't a perfect film. It's not a film that I'm constantly looking to watch, because it's pretty fucked up. I'm gonna go with 8 buckets. Everybody was great. The story was great. It's just it's not an epic 10 bucket film that I would want to watch over and over again. This will probably be the 5th time I've watched it in my lifetime. In its entirety, I'd say the 3rd time. So yeah, 8 buckets.
Lego.
I was pleasantly surprised going back and watching this. It had been some time since I'd seen it, and I remembered liking it, but it didn't blow me out of the water. This time around, it really got me, and I saw a lot of things that I had missed the first time, second time around. And there's an amazing level of detail, and it's well acted and well shot. So I'd say this is a 10 out of 10.
Jose, what do you got for us?
Unlike my comrade over there, this is a movie I enjoy going back and watching, for everything that Lego said and more. Plus, it's the only one that's won an Academy Award, man. Kathy Bates is, I mean, damn, man. I want to say The Waterboy was the first time I saw her, and then watching her in this one, I was like, talk about range, man. It has gotten some references here and there and other things and other pop culture, but I still believe it's underrated. I still feel that as far as Stephen King's work, The Shining still gets talked about the most, still gets like all of this praise, because I believe maybe because of its connection with Stanley Kubrick and whatnot. But I feel like this and Nicholas, yeah, and that dude. But I think Misery is definitely one of those underrated gems, and I would recommend it to anybody, and I would be more than happy if we spun the wheel and we got to see it again. I mean, why not? I really like it. I mean, you can't, man, that leg breaking scene is epic, man. If you don't, I squirm every single time I see it, man. The music, what song is that playing? It's a sonata. It's somebody's sonata, right?
Barachi, isn't it?
I don't know, but every time I hear it, I always remember this movie. So to have that kind of lasting effect for me, that's a 10 out of 10 for me.
Nate.
This movie, I really dug into that question that you asked Isaac in the first place. So I'm going to give you my answer to his question before I get into my buckets.
Sure.
I think it was a great movie, but I think it was feminine in the fact that it took 1,000 words to say what 100 words could have said. I don't think it needed to be as long as it was. I think that the time after the car crash until the breaking of the legs, it's like an hour long. And I think that could have been whittled way down. I think it could have been an episode of Creep Show or something like that, as opposed to what it was. And if it was whittled down, then it would have, would have cost them their awards and whatnot for the movie. So I think that they got the right people involved. You talk about selling out and branding and whatnot. I know I got a buddy named Lego who likes to talk about those things a lot. You get the right team involved and they can't help but look at your movie and watch it and say that that's the one they're going to put up for the Oscar. And as opposed to other ones that didn't have Rob Reiner working on them. So not taking away anything from this movie, everything everybody said is true. Like the ankle breaking scene made me cringe. I watched it with Gwen. She was just like, "Oh my God, Dad, what are we watching?" So there's definitely merit in all those things that everybody's saying. But I just think that from after the car crash to the ankle breaking, that portion of the movie, it was just, and maybe it's because I'm a dude that has a hard time sitting still nowadays. I don't know. It seems like they could have took some out of it. So, that being said, with as far as buckets go, I'm going to be with Isaac again, and giving it 8 buckets.
Liz.
I've been stupid fireworks. I've enjoyed this movie since the first time I saw it, but I did read the book first, so I was like, oh, they're gonna change a lot of stuff. But the adaptation, I think, from book to movie is one of the better ones there. Yeah, sure, he was supposed to get his leg chopped off instead of just hobbled, and his post-traumatic afterwards was a lot worse. But to Nate's point with the whole verbiage and the stuff in the middle, that's Stephen King. He's a guy who likes to go deep into character development, and that's just a natural thing with his writing that he does. And I think that's why it translated into the movie a little bit more, because they didn't want to lose out little idiosyncrasies and things like that, I think, for the movie. But yeah, Stephen King does that a lot. Like, his novels could be half as long most of the time anyway. But because he gets so deep into some of these characters and wants everybody to know who these people are, that's his thing. I love Kathy Bates, so I'm always on board for Kathy Bates movies, and she's a great actress. But this movie, everything was great. The pacing was good. The story, the acting. I mean, there's 6 main characters in this whole movie that we get to see, I think, instead of this huge ensemble cast that you normally see. It was there's 6 people, and I thought it did well for that, and I'm gonna give it 8 buckets. It's not perfect, but it's really good.
Yeah, I haven't seen this movie in a couple of decades, and really the only thing I remembered about it was the leg breaking scene. Pretty much everything else I had forgotten how thank you, Disney.
Sorry.
I had forgotten how the movie's story arc goes, but honestly, I thought the story was fantastic. I thought the acting was great. Everything was believable. The directing, Rob Reiner, even with a horror film, knows what he's doing. It was definitely fun to watch. To have moments where you can laugh in the midst of something so full of despair. I mean, when they clink glasses together and he's like, "to misery," you can get the sense that he really means that word misery, given his situation.
Instead of finger.
Oh yeah, well yeah. I know. At that point, he's just like, I'm done. And I know that the movie has had influence, although I'm not sure how much down the road. I mean, I'm sure they've had references in things like The Simpsons or maybe South Park or something like that, but beyond that, I'm not sure how much more it's had, but for me, this is definitely a 9 bucket movie. It's really good. Highly recommend it. And with that, during our Talking Shh episode tonight, I'll be passing the baton on to Jose. So tune into that to find out what the movie was. Actually, by the time you watch this, you'll already know what it is if you're following our content. So for Late to the Party, I'm Josh.
Liz. That's our cat.
Isaac.
I'm Jason.
And I'm Jose.
Nate.
Tune in next week to see what we're going to be watching. Join us.
Dun.